Hello, it is I, the usual narrator. Totally the same narrator that we always have. Nothing suspicious here. Today I am delighted that we have my absolute favorite Pokemon in the whole wide world, Tropius. Those who played Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire will remember its design, among the most unique in a generation filled with creativity. After all, who doesn't love a big, tropical, almost dragon-like dinosaur with bananas around its neck? Tropius was awesome in the anime too. In a perfect, stunning example of anime logic, it was able to use its solar beam to create a double KO in the face of Ash's Torkoal's overheat, which is of course exactly how it should work. Finally, a Shadow Tropius also appeared in Pokemon Colosseum on Cypher Peon's Dawn's team during the final act of the game. Today we'll be examining how this delightful potassium Pokemon performed in the competitive scene. So we ask, how good was Tropius actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. With its maddeningly mediocre stat spread and weakness-ridden typing, Tropius was never going to pull off anything in its surprisingly solid bag of tricks in OU, not least because it was outclassed by Celebi, Venusaur, Breloom, Exeggutor, and Jumpluff. And even though none of those Pokemon were allowed in UU, Tropius couldn't get anything done there either. Its stats were simply too low relative to the competition, which would outrun and run over Tropius' easily exploitable defenses. Even if Tropius managed to get a super effective shot off, it still wasn't threatening pretty much anything that wasn't Amistar. Fortunately, the power level in NU was far below that of UU, and thus Tropius found a niche. This wasn't just lip service either, it was genuinely good and even a threat. Imagine that. Advanced NU is a tier where the sentence, "this team is threatened by Tropius," is 100% legitimate. Could this be reason to crown it the greatest metagame of all time? Perhaps. But what did Tropius do in NU that made it legit? Well, its primary draw was that it checked possibly the most dangerous Pokemon in the tier, Hitmonchan, thanks to its solid bulk and access to reliable recovery in Synthesis, which allowed it to make the most of its valuable fighting resistance, while threatening Chan back with hidden power flying. Now, Tropius was a grass type which couldn't check water types thanks to its quadruple Ice Beam weakness, but that was just fine as one could simply use a different water type check like Bulky Wailord. Tropius was worth the effort as it brought plenty of value besides just checking Hitmonchan. It was a grass type that ripped through Roselia as opposed to being Spike's fodder, while also having excellent Spike's immunity, which meant it already had a leg up on much of the tier in terms of longevity. Finally, Tropius was actually a threat. When we said a team could be threatened by Tropius, we really meant it, as it used none other than Swords Dance to boost hidden power flyings and earthquakes. This made up for its low attack stat, especially as Tropius' solid bulk often allowed it to Swords Dance twice in the face of common Pokemon like Chimecho, after which it would tear through pretty much everything. A Hitmonchan check with outstanding longevity, the potential to sweep, the ability to go toe-to-toe with several other top-tier Pokemon, that was a seriously excellent set of attributes to have in one Pokemon. It took a while, but Tropius finally found its place in its debut generation's NU tier. Generation 4 gave Tropius some cool additions. It received a better recovery move in Roost, far superior grass stabs on both sides of the new physical special spectrum, and was one of the few Pokemon to receive the Solar Power ability, the others being Sunflora and Sunkern. When Heart Gold and Soul Silver came around, Tropius even received Dragon Dance, which sent a ripple of excitement through many players. However, all this was for naught because Tropius was terrible. In a monstrously power-crept generation featuring higher base power moves, better boosting items, stronger Pokemon, and Stealth Rock in literally every battle, Tropius couldn't keep up at all, even in NU. The new power level was such that Tropius likely wouldn't have been able to do much walling even without rocks, but at least it would have had some sort of niche, albeit small. However, with rocks, it just couldn't do anything. But what about an offensive niche? Well, Dragon Dance was not but a tease for it, because it was illegal with Leaf Blade, and sadly, Tropius did not have Power Whip for some strange reason. So any thoughts of Dragon Dance sweeping with it went out the window. Sun teams were actually good in NU, and if one really wanted to use Tropius, that's what they were probably best off doing. Solar power boosted Choice Specs Leaf Storms actually hit incredibly hard. The problem, of course, was that Tropius was slow and riddled with weaknesses, meaning its opportunities to dish out that impressive damage were nearly nil. If you really had your heart set on using Tropius, yes, you could make it work. After all, Slowking, Regirock, and Sandslash were staples, and Tropius could double switch into them and get blasting. That'd be a lot of work for medium reward though, and generally not worth the effort. As such, Tropius was pretty much never seen in serious play, and so Generation 4 was thoroughly forgettable for it. Tropius received another interesting ability in Generation 5, Harvest, which had a 50% chance of procuring an already eaten berry at the end of every turn. Under Sun, this chance was 100%. This had promise on a substitute Leech Seed set holding Citrus Berry, especially since OU now had Drought Ninetails. And then you remember that Executor also received Harvest and was better in every single way. Well, that was fine since you didn't need Sun to function, but the problem was Tropius couldn't escape Executor, no matter where it went. Power creep was such that Executor had now dropped all the way to NU. It's a shame because without Executor around to outclass it, Tropius probably would have been decent. Not a world beater by any means, but it would have had a nice little niche. Sadly, that was not the case, and Tropius went the entire 5th generation without much of a thought. The player base preferred a bunch of gross eggs to delicious, nutritious bananas, and Tropius went untiered as a result. The 6th generation delivered what Tropius had needed a generation before, a new lowest tier below NU. Sadly, by the time PU actually came around, so had another generation of power creep, while Tropius had received absolutely nothing. Pokemon get passed over all the time, but this felt especially cruel, given that this was the generation of both Mega Evolutions and the return to Hoenn with Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. It was the perfect opportunity to give Tropius the boost it needed, but nah. Let's give the huge boosts to the Pokemon that are already good. Suffice it to say, Tropius stood nary a chance in ORAS PU. It was thoroughly outclassed as a Subseeder Gourgeist S, but it was also outclassed as a Pokemon by, well, most everything else. As such, Tropius found itself in untiered once again. You know what should have happened. Tropius should have received Primal Reversion, where it becomes a full-on Dragon Banana, and its ability would be a combination of Desolate Land, Chlorophyll, and Solar Power, minus the recoil damage. And it would be a Grass, Dragon, Flying Fire type. You're welcome, Game Freak. The most amazing thing about the 7th generation was how it gave Tropius its own Z-move, Tilted Banana Draco Meteor, which was basically Draco Meteor except it was both Grass and Dragon, and it was super effective on Fairy types, and was 200 base power, and instead of giving Tropius -2 special attack, it actually gave it +4 special attack, +3 speed, and +2 defenses. At long last, Tropius received the buffs and recognition it deserved. Just kidding. Sadly. Its stats remained unchanged, and its move pool received Dragon Hammer, which definitely scored cool points, but did nothing useful for it. There was no reason to use it in PU over Tangela, or, well, anything. The metagame was much stronger than it had been in previous generations, and if Tropius hadn't been able to keep up there, it was triply incapable this time around. Once again, Tropius dropped to untiered. So how good was Tropius actually? Well, it had a good start with a solid niche in its debut generation of NU, where it acted as a solid check to top-tier Pokemon while threatening to sweep with Swords Dance. Sadly, ever since Generation 4, Tropius has been out of sight, and not in the cool way. Its stats and typing and move pool were simply too poor for it to find any sort of half-serious use, even in the lowest tiers. Who knows what it might have done if it had appeared in Generation 8 with heavy-duty boots? Still probably not much. Hopefully it'll return in Scarlet and Violet, with a regional form, evolution, stat boost, or, well, something. Thanks for watching. Also, I, the usual narrator, say that you should totally subscribe to Tierzu. He does videos on Pokemon IRL, and they're awesome.